Scene sequel is plot. There's plot, character, theme, dramatic irony, various aspects to writing or stories. This is from, actually, from my book, Language of Evil, a true crime book. This is right near the beginning. And finished this in 2008, finished writing Language of Evil. But I bought this Michael Hauge in 2006 after my my book Nightmare in Wichita was adapted into a movie. You know, I talked with the screenwriters and a lot of the people, executive producer, and learned a lot about screenwriting. I started reading books and watching DVDs. This has 3 DVDs in it, and took them out because I'm going to flip this around. But there's Hauge and Christopher Vogler, who wrote The Writer's Journey. And I actually have every edition of The Writer's Journey. But I'm going to talk about Hauge's structure. Now, it's not just Hauge's structure. I don't know. His father-in-law may have come up with it. His father-in-law was his wife's father was a screenwriter. Right after I watched this, I turned on television, and it was on the station I was watching was playing a old rerun of a Sea Hunt, a series called Sea Hunt, starring Lloyd Bridges. And the author was Michael Hauge's father-in-law. All right. This is Aldous Boudry's plot structure, which I discussed in a previous video. You can find that if you're interested. Aldous Boudry's went over this. Character in context with a problem, makes reasonable attempts to solve the problem. Unexpectedly fails 3 times. Finally, has victory and validation. This is a little more complicated. He's got 6 stages in his story and 5 turning points. Now, that's what I found in nonfiction when I wrote Language of Evil. I wrote a draft, and then I analyzed it to see what needed to be different. And as I wrote, I was astonished to see that although key characters, real people, come into the story at different points at different times, they all have these same 5 turning points. Case of life imitating art. Case of life imitating art. So, if I remember, he in one of his DVDs here, he goes over using the feature film Tom Cruise movie The Firm, John Grisham novel, to illustrate this structure. So, stage 1, setup. Tom Cruise is playing Mitchell McDeere, law student, Harvard, Boston, and he's getting job offers, and he's got no interest in anything except money. So he accepts the best paying offer, and it takes him to Memphis, Tennessee. So he moves, and that's very common in, Hollywood film, traditionally structured Hollywood film, bell curve, 7 out of 10. And so he moves to Memphis. Now, he is just thinking about passing the bar exam and working as a lawyer, making money. The audience, however, is clued in. There's something fishy going on. Turns out his law firm represents a huge organized crime entity. So, next part. He's in his new situation. He and his wife are living in Memphis. At first everything's fine. But then he has, at the end of Act 1, a change of plans, turning point 2. So this is when he realizes he needs to get out of this law firm without getting killed. 2 lawyers in the firm were just killed because they didn't like representing the mob. Nobody knows they're representing the mob when they go to work for this firm. They find out incrementally. So from 25% to 75%, he's trying to get out. And he's going for help, hires a private detective. Private detective is murdered. And he thinks he's making progress, but then at the midpoint, turning point 3, point of no return, the FBI talks to him, says, we know you're working for the mob. You have to either give us evidence, or when we start arresting people, we're going to arrest you too. We can give you immunity, but you have to work with us. Well, he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to get disbarred. He wants to be a lawyer. He's got the rest of his life. Doesn't want to be looking over his shoulder to see if the mob's here to kill him. So he continues trying to think of a way out, acting, trying to copy records, and complications and higher stakes. His wife's mad at him, FBI's mad at him, and then the firm and the mob get mad at him. Now there's a lot of disagreement here, just like Dwight Swain says, disaster, the way to end a scene. Haig teaches major setback, and he can give many, many examples. Major setback. And then the last part, well, actually stage 5, then to the story climax, and then aftermath. You got to have some aftermath as validation. Same thing. Most competent writers about plot say you've got to have this stage. It doesn't have to be very long. That's why he says anywhere between 90 and 99%. He gives the example, Thelma of Louise. It's just that last scene with the car frozen in midair after driving into the Grand Canyon. 99%. The last part is the aftermath. They don't actually show you what happens, but you kind of believe that they don't survive a 1-mile fall into the Grand Canyon. So, I do think there's not always, but really a lot of stories you can find these 5 turning points. That's one of the things when I finish my book I will talk about. There's actually 5 decisions. Like here, Mitch McDeere has an opportunity. He could accept other jobs and go elsewhere, but he goes to the one that offers the most money to go to Memphis. It's a decision. He could just accept being a mob lawyer, but he decides he wants to try to get out of the firm. It's a decision. Anyway, what I'm writing, I call it the 5 decision outline. And I'll go over that later, probably when I publish the book. Here Hague talks about Thelma and Louise. If you remember the story, set up, Thelma is an unhappy wife, doesn't work outside the home. She's a housewife. Louise is an unhappy waitress. They get a free weekend at the boss's cabin, and they leave and go to the boss's cabin. That is inciting incident. I don't want to get into an argument here about what the inciting incident is, but people have strong opinions about it. Most people will say, we'll go along with this. In fact, I've got a separate, I made a whole list of inciting incidents in different stories. And that is a really key decision. In Star Wars, well, I won't go into that one now, but these are discernible in, the majority of commercial stories. Majority meaning 51%, but it's more like 70, 75%. Unless it's just a, theme story or character arc story. Anyway, that's this has been taught for at least a century, this type, varying in detail how to write a story. This is talking strictly about a prose short story, and Writing to the Point by Aldous Boudries. And here is writing a feature film.